Welcome to No Clip, the podcast that's like a book club for people who don't think that books reward them enough for being good at them. I'm Chad Ruthermond.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And today, we're going to be talking about Cryptmaster, a game that was developed and published by Akupara Games and was released in 2023 on Windows and inexplicably on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and the Xbox Series X and S.
But first, if you can give us a like or a rating, it would be greatly appreciated.
So, Cryptmaster, a great game to play for Halloween, which it currently is. And nobody can tell me otherwise, is a dungeon crawler game that uses typed inputs and involves puzzle solving and combat. Make of that genre-wise what you will. Because it is a bit of a complicated animal in that regard. And I don't know about you, but to me, that's like my favorite thing about this game, is that it is a weird enigma.
Yeah. It definitely feels a lot like a dungeon crawler while you're playing it, but then also at times it doesn't. It does feel surprisingly unique.
Yeah, and if my goal of this was to sell somebody on playing this game, which I haven't determined if that is true yet or not, I would say that the cool thing about this game is that, I would first of all say, don't buy this on a console where you have to play with a controller. I don't know how that works. So I guess maybe there's like a fun version of this that exists, but I cannot imagine it.
Yeah. I noticed on the start screen, it shows that it has controller support. Yes. I almost tried playing it with the controller a little bit just to see what that was about, but never did. So I don't know how that works either.
Yeah, I will. Well, I do want to check now that we're talking about it, but it does seem like this game is so tied to the keyboard for every single mechanic. Like, with the exception of walking around, even interacting with things is done by typing that item's name rather than by using an interact button. And I presume on a controller it would just be an interact button.
Right.
But to get into sort of like the core mechanics of the game, which is a difficult thing to determine what counts in some ways, but a lot of it is typing words. Your characters can type words at any time, and it will do stuff. Sometimes that is just provoke a response from the narrator, and other times it will be in combat performing attacks, using potions. In the overworld, you can interact with items, and you can speak to people using single words that the game will then interpret and respond. And so that is my main reason for saying I don't get why you would do this on a controller. But it is such a good idea, particularly in my opinion, the way that the memory system works. Which is whenever you defeat an enemy or solve a puzzle or figure out what is in the box, we can finally answer Brad Pitt's question in 100 different ways. You're rewarded with letters, which go into words that are above each of your 4 party members. And then you have to figure out from the letters you have available what words they are, which then create a sprawling tree of like attacks and related memories that for each of your characters. And I think it's sick. I think it's super cool.
Yeah, no, it is super cool. Are you any good at Wheel of Fortune?
I've never really played Wheel of Fortune, either on television or in my home. I haven't really watched it very much. But I will say that I do all of the stupid word games every day, which I think probably gives me a bit of an edge in this game.
Yeah, I'm terrible at it. Like, my brain will, like, see the letters that are there, and then, like, it'll be like a word with, you know, maybe 4 of the letters are there. It'll be like an S, an H, an E, and an L, and then my brain will just be like, shield. You know, even though it's obviously not the right word. And then every time I look at it, I can't not think that word. And it creates this, like, mental block, and it makes it really hard for me to guess them. So, yeah, I'm bad at that sometimes. And I ended up, like, resorting to, like, just Googling, like, 6-letter word that starts with blank, blank, blank. And then you would just, like, look through and be like, oh, that's it.
Yeah, the crossword puzzle and Wordle are essentially just like just the mechanics of this game. So it was definitely not like this was not an unusual thing for me to do. And I saw it, like, I didn't know much about this game when I suggested it. I knew that it was like a cool keyboard based dungeon crawling game. Right. And I was like, that sounds like the weird kind of shit that we like. And then I knew that it had gotten like some minor amount of hype when it came out. And I was like, this is very much sort of in the no-clip wheelhouse. Yeah. But had I known more about what this game was, I feel like I would be less enthusiastic to have recommended it. Because to, I guess, bridge the gap a bit to my second point here, 95% of this game is solving riddles.
Yeah, it sure is. That's my first note is I would have liked it if there was, like, any kind of variety to the stuff you do that isn't combat, like, other than just riddles. Yeah, you just do riddles, and then there's the find stuff in a box, which is kind of a complicated riddle. It's like 20 questions, but you only have, like, 5 questions.
Yeah, and it's like the riddles aren't even, like, riddles that are custom made for the universe of the game.
Nope, they're riddles.
They're riddles that, depending on, like, your history with, and I'm just gonna say, tabletop role-playing games, the place where I encounter riddles the most in my life, you'll probably know some of them. Like, there were many riddles that I would hear and then just go, okay, I know the answer to this because I've heard it before.
Right.
And then other ones that you have to sit and puzzle out, and they take like 6 minutes of you just like staring at a fucking skull on a screen.
Yep.
So that's the dichotomy here. This is like half a game I think is super cool, has great ideas, and then half a game where you just solve riddles.
Right.
Which is, like, not inherently bad, but also not very exciting.
Yeah. It feels like they had a really cool core concept and, like, set of mechanics, and they were like, well, we need something else to flesh this out. And then they were just like, how about riddles? You get the riddles right, and it gives you letters. It fits enough.
Because if you look at it in one way, like, defeating enemies to get letters is an analog to, like, any other RPG where you can defeat enemies to level up. Eventually you will get the letters that you need to get more attacks and then actually level up, which gives you an additional letter in your name. I only ever did that once. I don't know if you found another one, or how far down you have to go to get it, if it exists. But I added 1 letter to each of my characters' names by the end of the game.
Same.
Okay. But yeah, like, there's an analog there. But there are also so many ways outside of combat to get letters that you don't really need to do the combat, which to me, I think came from the fact that the combat in this game is incredibly difficult to, like, get your head around. Like, I don't think that you die very often. I would argue that until, like, the very end of the game, it's pretty unlikely for you to just straight die. But the act of doing combat is so mentally taxing, trying to remember all of your moves, especially with, like, the addition of enemies who are just like, don't use a B. Right. It's like, oh, fuck. Like, now I have to think about, like, what in my usual rotation of moves, I can't use anymore and what the other things are. And so you end up spending a lot of time in combat with just like menus open, being like, what move do I use?
Yeah, or you could do the thing that I did, which is just the classic RPG thing where I just found a strategy that works and only ever did that.
Right. But what about...
So I didn't have to remember all the words that I had.
Well, remembering all the words you have is like just flatly impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure that there are people out there who can do it, and if you play the game a bunch of times, it would be no trouble.
No trouble.
But I think that, like, on a first-time playthrough, like, trying to remember everything is not feasible.
Right.
Or fun, for that matter, because it would require you to study for the game.
Yeah, learn your vocab.
Yeah, learn that vocabulary. And so, yeah, you do settle into, like, rotations, but then the game will intentionally disrupt those rotations.
I found that it did that so infrequently that I almost never had to worry about it, though, until, like, the end.
Yeah. Well, and that is even like, I don't even know where I put the end of this game in terms of like, because I spent a lot of time in the first two areas and very little time in the last two areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's like by design or if I just like sprinted through it.
Yeah, the last area is definitely streamlined. For sure.
But yeah, anyway, so that's the game. That's the whole game. Every bit of it is like a little bit weird.
Well, yeah, one thing I was thinking in relation to this is like, did you really need the abilities to use up a depletable resource? Like obviously, like it's like taking the place of experience. Like I get what they're doing. And it's clever, but like, I don't know, every ability taking up a resource and then like being in the spots where you have to like be just watching out for bugs on the wall and, like other little things to refill it. Like, I don't know that it's really adding that much. I kind of like it. Like there is like a resource management thing. And there were times where it was like, oh, like I've got to ration, almost like a survival horror feeling. But like I don't know how worth it is or if a different system would be better.
Yeah. I think that is kind of the problem is because I also had this thought. It's the souls system, which is what the game uses to limit your combat to an extent. You get souls for killing enemies and also souls from getting bugs on the wall and from fish,
right? And solving riddles
and winning games of whatever,
right?
And there's like a few ways that you can get like some souls here and there, and because it's so plentiful for the first like while, and the way that the game scales, right? Like the further down the trees you get, the words that you use for your attacks have more letters. And the letters are what decide how much you pull out. So, like, if you're using Soothe on Maz to heal one letter of a name, also you die by losing letters. It's all connected, you can see. Then that that takes 6 mana souls to use.
Right.
To heal 2, he has one that's called Alleviate, which takes 8. ? Somebody just write that out and count.
Like some abilities are free, like some of your early shorter ones, yeah, and then after that, that's just 9. How many letters, the word is.
Yeah, so to get the more efficient heal, you use Alleviate, which takes a larger chunk at once. Also, it can be used outside of combat. To me, that is the thing. Like, the only time that I needed to farm souls were... in the middle of the God Island quests, because they were just like back-to-back sort of combat encounters, where I was using the healing outside of combat a lot, and that's what drained it.
Right.
And then at the very end of the game, I like had to do a little bit to make sure that I had enough to go through without having to stop, essentially.
Right. Yeah, I did eventually learn that, like, enemies will stay dead if you rest at the altars. So, like, you can, like, go halfway through the area, turn back and rest, and then go through the rest. So you can, like, save precious souls that way, but it just is more tedious.
Yeah. And I think that ends up sort of being the biggest problem that I have with the game, is that a lot of the things, playing the game itself is cool, but then a lot of things are just sort of tedious and slow. And like bringing up the altars is a great thing. Before you get to the tower, anytime that you want to save the game, you have to go to a warp point that's like close to a altar and then walk to the altar. The tower, there's one right there, and so I always use that as my save point from that point on.
Do you have to rest at altars to save the game?
I mean, I guess I didn't technically check, but I assumed.
I think it just auto-saves, like, all the time.
That's crazy.
I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it is just a modern game and just saves itself every 5 seconds.
Let me scratch off this particular complaint that I had about the fact that I felt like this didn't need this didn't need to have like save points, or if it did, it didn't need to have separate. I think they could have gone full bonfire with it. I think they could have just been altars are save points and also your warp points, so that you could just warp to the altars, so that you never are in a situation where you have to walk to them.
Also, bonfires aren't save points.
Well, you can call it a save point. You know, it's a checkpoint. You know, yeah. But I think that they could have gone in that direction. With
I know what you mean.
But if it autosaves, that's crazy. I had no idea. I genuinely thought that you had to be at an altar to save the game. I never stopped playing until I went to one.
Yeah, no, I think I did the same thing just because I grew up in the save point era of video games, which I do that in Dark Souls too. Even though it explicitly is saving all the time. Right. I always rest at a bonfire before I quit. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it autosaves. But anyway. I think, it's like that. It's trying to, it wants to be this interesting indie typing game. But it also then is trying to put that on an RPG framework. And I just don't think enough work was done to like blend the two. Like, I had points where I was thinking, like, oh, I wish this would have leaned more into being a typing game. Like having more like that island quest, or, like, you know, like getting the island god books or whatever, like, felt like more of a gauntlet, you know? And it's like, this is cool. I feel like the mechanics are getting to shine. We'll come back to this in a second, but, like, those boss fights I thought were cool because, like, you had to fill out the word that they had above them, so it made you use different abilities. So I thought that was an interesting difference in kind. But yeah, like it felt more like it was getting that like epistory feeling because I'm doing more of the typing. So yeah, I feel like and like you may have gave me the thought of like the better healing spell is like more letters, and like if they could maybe have leaned into like better abilities or longer words, so that like puts pressure on you to like type them faster, or, you know, typing game type stuff. But like, yeah, like it doesn't really get, I don't think either half really gets to shine because it's like not as well of a like, what's the word, like a developed fusion of the two genres.
Yeah, I think it's fun because like I'm so mixed on different parts of this game because like there's so much in it that's like obviously intentional design. I don't know if you like looked anything up about this game while you were playing it, like things like where should I go if I run completely out of souls, and discovered any Steam forum posts, because the top comment on every Steam forum post is from the developer themselves. They are like making an active effort to sort of like get in and engage with people, which is good. I think that it is a good thing to be engaged with your community to an extent, people don't always know what they want, so you don't listen to them all the time. But the important thing though is that like I think when they say things like, "Oh, go to the pools to get fish," and then the fish is where the souls are. You can get souls from the fish. It's great. You can get letters from the fish. It serves as a little bit of like a double, like it's an intended part of the game that's there to alleviate a problem. And I feel like there's so many of these like silver bullet type solutions to things in the game that it never fully feels like it's a complete package.
It's a bunch of band-aids holding a sculpture together.
Yeah, and it sucks because the core concept is
great.
So good. Yeah. I think that the memory system is super good. I like the like getting letters from different things to increase the abilities, but then it just feels so rickety in places. And it's great because like it has its own niche. Like this isn't like a what was that game called? Scribble Knots, where the amusing thing about it is that like, oh, it's surprising how many things it's able to interpret. Like this has like a limited number of things that it's going to do, but it does those things like really like its core concept, like the words and stuff and how it interacts with the rest of the world. It's done really well. And then building a 12-hour game on top of it was like really putting a lot of strain on those systems.
Yeah.
So I tend to agree with you. I think we needed more things like the God boss fights that use the cool other systems in interesting ways and fewer things like bugs and fish.
Right.
Like those things are just sort of, it's there to support, but it's just too much other stuff.
Yeah. From my comfortable armchair, I would probably, and with the gift of hindsight, I guess I would say like I probably would have taken out like the soul mechanic, like entirely, and focus more. Like I like the idea of getting letters just being the way you get new abilities. Like I think you can keep that part, but then like having using the abilities be infinite, I think would be better. Then you could balance it harder too. Because you don't have to worry about running out of stuff.
Yeah, because the thing that you're worried about when you're using things in battle, you aren't in a fight. You aren't concerned with the souls. You just spend the souls that you need to. Yeah, and then from there you sort of like work out. After the battle, you do your accounting and you say, "Uh-oh, now I have to go." Type out clackjack and love bug a bunch of times.
Axe wing and blah, blah, blah.
Axe wing. Also, there's a fish that's just called Jeffrey that I found really funny.
Right. Shout out to Jeffrey.
Shout out to Jeffrey. All my homies love Jeffrey. So yeah, I think that's sort of like that and the riddles are the things that are my biggest barriers here.
Yeah.
Because everything else I think is great, but the soul mechanic is a bit of a drag. And the riddles they're just too many riddles.
Yeah. If you ever needed proof that riddles are best as an every once in a while kind of thing, look no further than Cryptmaster.
Agreed. Like you can see, like I don't actually. Okay, no, These are notes that I had on the game. I'm just holding them up sort of demonstrably, like you don't have to read what's on them. About things that are like, these are like puzzles that I had to actually solve. And I thought that those were great. And it sucked that there were so few of them in comparison to the riddles. Like, there's a cipher that you do to get to one of the islands, which I had a lot of fun. I only had one translated sign, the palace sign, and then just using sort of intuition and the other information that was given, and led to a conclusion based on a hint given by the Cryptmaster when I examined the scroll, was able to just sit here and work out as much of it as I needed to get to the island. And I was like, that was fun. That was like a different mental challenge than what I've been doing otherwise, and had a good time.
and not a riddle.
Right. Not a riddle. And then you get to the island and you do like a bunch more riddles. And you're like, damn it.
But I did actually like the chest ones though. For the most part.
Yeah.
There were some where it felt like the hints that the Cryptmaster would give were like so unhelpful. It's just like, how is anyone supposed to get this? But for the most part, I liked them. I thought those were actually pretty cool. Because it leads into like one of the game's biggest strengths, which is the Cryptmaster himself.
Right. We have a charismatic lead, which is very helpful.
Yeah, and I had a Realms of the Haunting kind of moment while playing this, where I'm like, it's amazing how much dialogue they recorded for this. You know, like I was walking around like the first area, and I don't remember what it was I looked at, but I just typed in like whatever I was looking at, and he like said the word that I typed, and then had a little response for it. I was like, wow, like, and you know, and it keeps happening throughout the whole game. Like it's pretty wild how many words they had that guy sit there and read.
Oh yeah, Jesus. It definitely would, and I didn't. And this is something I could probably look up in a second, but I love the use of. I guess we're entering into spoiler territory. There's not much to spoil in this game, frankly, but whatever. Here it is. I love the fact that like the main antagonist at the end, Aldo, is the Cryptmaster, but like his human side,
right,
as opposed to his spiritual side, because it really bring home, like, I think one of the feelings that this game gave me that other games that are explicitly designed around giving this feeling did not do, is playing an RPG with your friends, because it's like, it does kind of sound like the same guy doing everyone's voice.
Yeah.
Like in that moment where he's like he's doing a dialogue between him, like with himself, like the voice actor is voicing the same character. I was like, damn, like you can't help but imagine like the real person involved in this having to like record two sides of an argument.
Right.
Which I thought was fun, but the voice acting throughout the whole game is real good, and like brings a lot of personality and character to the game, and I think saves it from being like from that dullness that we described that you get when you're just getting bugs on the wall.
Yeah. No, yeah, it does bring a lot of personality to it, and like I think it really is what strikes the tone, which I really liked in this, because like it is like lighthearted and a little bit silly, but it isn't like too silly. You know, it does kind of have a D&D feel. Like I think it's a great comparison. Cuz like, you know, like you can't help but like joke around with your friends when you play D&D, but then you also like, if you're doing a D&D campaign, like you want to take it like a certain amount of serious, and like it really feels like it walks that line. Like it is an interesting fantasy setting, and it is a bit goofy, and I think it rocks the tightrope really well. And I think the Cryptmaster's voice performance really, I think, carries that.
Oh yeah, I think he does such a good job and is so ever present that it helps carry the tone, like you were saying, like walking that line, because he is like, the character is written to be a sort of insulting character, a character that doesn't like you as the player.
Yeah, sarcastic.
Right. That's a good way of putting it. But also is the crux of the entire narrative, and is like, pretty explicitly working to bring about like an apocalypse. And so you have to, in order to engage with the story, you have to take him somewhat seriously, while the game itself doesn't want to be so serious in its tone that it goes without jokes. So his character really is just like extremely good at this stuff.
Yeah, like he's not quite on the same level, but you could almost compare him to like the narrator from the Stanley Parable, or like GLaDOS from Portal. Like
Yeah.
he kind of is the game, to a certain extent.
Games named after him and everything. Like I agree with that. I think he does sort of embody what the game is.
Yeah. And I also think that, like, I wonder if, like, that visual of the Cryptmaster is, like, one of the earlier things they came up with. Because it feels like he fits, or, like, the art style of the game fits him so well. Because he's kind of like, it's like a black and white art style. And he, like, is always, like, bleeding into the darkness, right? Like, he's, like, rim lit or whatever. And it just a really cool visual. And I just wonder if that's where, like, the black and white like art style came from.
I can kind of see that. Like having a design for the Cryptmaster and then saying like, what do we like hard cut to like shots of him like to something else but no, it works well when you like bleed it into the rest of the world. Let it be a black and white thing. I do think that they're trying to evoke a sort of retro aesthetic in the game. But obviously it's like, it's weird because it doesn't have like as clear of a source as other games that try to invoke a retro, like era kind of thing. Like, cause it uses a cell shading, texture. So everything is a little comic booky. So like maybe they're going for like the old Crypt Keeper comics, stuff like that, but those are very colorful. So the fact this is in black and white stands out. So it has that like sort of mysterious is giving it too much credit, but like it has a nostalgic but still interesting look to it. Like something that's it's very different.
Yeah, I definitely thought comic book, because of the thick black outlines. But then I also thought kind of like in like an illustrative, like maybe like monster manual kind of look was the other thing I was thinking of to continue the D&D comparisons.
Right.
But I don't know if that's what they were going for.
The Soul Stone, which is in the top right of your screen
is
at
D20,
all times in the game, is a D20. So, like, obviously that is
in a more modern comparison, it made me think a little bit of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Like, especially in the like fishing town, the pantry area. Because there was like the beachy areas in that game too. Yeah, and obviously that also is cel shaded, so I guess that's probably why my mind went there.
Well, it's true because it used to be much more common. Even Nintendo was doing it back in like 2001, right? But it's so infrequent that you see a very intentionally cel shaded game nowadays that it does stand out in a way. Like I would, if I were to list cel shaded games, I'd be that weren't Cryptmaster. I'd be like, the Wind Waker, right. Borderlands, Cell Damage.
Yeah, all of the Telltale games.
Oh yeah, Telltale games are cel shading.
And
as well.
that the newest game I can think of is that Hi-Fi Rush from Tango Gameworks, R.I.P.
Oh yeah, that's unfortunate. The real Halloween is how many studios and publishers have died in the last
is it
year.
Microsoft?
Yeah,
shut
them down.
Yeah, pour one out.
Tragedy.
There will never be an Evil Within 3.
I mean, we don't know that for sure.
That's true. Yeah, I mean,
they might pull it around.
He could definitely get funding to make that from somewhere else.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so the visuals I think are unique and they do stand out. And were something like I keep picturing like the rats who are all Australian for some reason. In the game, like they have this like, and whenever you have dialogue with another character, it pulls them up in this like extreme close up,
right?
Which I think more games should start doing because it's very like if you've played a first person game that has like narrative segments and you're like trying to watch somebody talk from an angle, like it's always weird and you're always tempted to just go fuck off and do something else.
If it's like in engine, it is always kind of weird.
Yeah, but then having it just like show up right in your face, first of all, shows a lot of confidence in their face rigging. Like at no point was I like, oh, that looks terrible. Like, they all looked pretty cool when they did it.
There's some strong character design for sure.
Definitely. The Countess, I think all 4 of the gods look really
the
great.
fucking Toad King, or whatever he was called.
Gago?
Yeah, Gago. Man, what a great character model.
Extremely solid, yeah. Also, okay, well, I'll talk about that after this, but I just think it's such a bold choice and goes towards sort of the like bizarre atmosphere that this game sort of casts.
Yeah, and like, what was the guy's name? He was like in like what was it called, like Underwood, or like one of the last areas where you had to get the paladin helmets.
Oh, or Rose. I don't know.
Yeah, that guy.
Something.
I just thought like had like the funniest face. I thought that was a great close up.
Oh yeah. He's because he has that like he's got like paper taped all over him.
Yeah, or something.
Or it's just like sticking out of his hair or whatever.
Like leaves or something.
Orthos is his name.
Orthos, yeah.
Potentially a reference to the Magic the Gathering psychographic profile Vorthos. Or not, I don't know. He is like the lore guy, so I think that might count. But speaking of Magic the Gathering, I do want to spare a minute to talk about Whatever, which I think is potentially the worst card game that has ever been like randomly thrown into an entirely different game. Though I also want to say that I love when they randomly throw a card game into a completely different game. Mm-hmm. I've played more Gwent than I've played of The Witcher 3. I like it. I think it was fun. I thought that it felt very uninteractive and luck-based more than... I'm sure there is a strategy, but it felt very difficult to get my head around. And so some of the losses in Whatever felt really bad to me, as opposed to being like a close game that I was like, oh, I almost had it, if only, you know?
Mm-hmm. And
by I mean, I'm sure that you don't know.
Yeah. And I am the exact opposite. I've played like 200 hours of The Witcher 3, and exactly like 1 minute of that was spent playing Gwent. When they tutorialized it, and it's the same in this game. I played it when they tutorialized it, and I never touched it again. I'm not a big card game person, so I did not play it very much.
Yeah, I'm just here saying,
like I don't know. I thought it was like kind of interesting because it was luck based, but like if I would have lost a game, then I probably would have not. And then like, well, the interestingness ran out.
Yeah, it tried. So it is very much like I'm bringing it up to be like, this is not a reason to play Cryptmaster, but maybe you'll find it fun. I don't know. I kind of did. I thought that I was like only doing them when I felt like I had the time to do it, or like just felt like I wanted to. And it turns out that I beat everyone except for one guy. And it did make me kind of want to go back and beat that guy, but also I didn't actually want to do that bad. So I don't know.
No, it kind of makes me
as somebody who got all of the stupid collectibles in the city in No More Heroes,
right.
It should speak volumes that I didn't want to complete this particular task.
Right. It makes me kind of wish that I did enjoy this sort of thing, because like I do like the effort that goes into it, like making it like how many characters you're able to play against. It is a thing that makes the world feel more alive. So, yeah, but just not quite my thing, though.
Yeah, I agree that it wouldn't be your thing, and also that it does add a little bit of life to the world.
Yeah.
The fact that like almost
play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, because they added a card game into that called Queen's Blood.
Oh, damn it! Okay, well, I'll buy it right now. I want to talk about combat a little bit. I think that we sort of danced around combat and talked about some of the mechanics, but I think that there's like there's a unique weirdness to the combat in this game that we have not yet remarked upon. And that is the fact that the game doesn't seem like it would care, but the position of the character that you're fighting on screen matters a lot, and like knocking people away from you stops their like attack timers, and then they can only be hit by ranged attacks. And as far as I know, this is not explained by the game ever. You just have to sort of figure that out.
Right. No, I don't remember it being explained by the game.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, like, my strategy was to just, like, have... Oh, God, I'm trying to remember their names. Sin is the rogue? Yeah. Like, would trip the guy. Then make him fall over. And then I would have Nyx zap him. And then I would have Maz sing to bring them back. And then have... and then by this time, the enemy's standing back up. Then have Joro use boot to knock them back over. And then essentially just, topple lock them. And just always have them knocked down.
This is a classic Xenoblade player strategy here.
And that just, like, pretty much always worked.
Yeah, it steamrolls like anyone who isn't a flyer and doesn't have a shield that prevents one of those moves. Yeah, I mean, that'll do it. I also mostly use Sin, but I did like the murder stacking.
Right.
That always just seemed like a fun, cool thing to do. So I would use Maz to yell so that I could have Joro guard and taunt. Yeah. The point of this is that there's actually a lot of like different functional strategies.
Right.
As I said at the beginning, I don't think that it is like so difficult or difficult period at all that you have that it like it's I don't know. It feels like maybe a lot of things work because it's just hard to die to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
But then like you get to some of the later fights with enemies that have armor, which does require you to sort of move your strategy around. Like you can hit them multiple times quickly in order to break the armor, but there are also moves that specifically break the armor. And then the aforementioned shields, and there's like a whole dungeon where you can't use the S key or else you take damage.
Yep. So you can't
to sort of
can't heal.
Yeah, you can't use soothe. But you can use alleviate.
That's true. Yeah.
So yeah, there's like all of these like little things to mix it up that I think they could have gone further with it to force more of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, like the real time combat is so like a lot of times you're just like I just have to pause to think to figure out what I need to do, and I feel like they almost want to they should take that function away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Just to like make it more tense, because there is a turn-based mode that you can turn off that would like that would alleviate that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's a quirky system, and also sometimes your attacks just miss, and you go, I don't know if that's because the guy was too far away, or if these moves can actually just miss on a percentage chance.
I think they have a percentage chance to miss. Because I think that's a way, because the knock people down strategy is so good. They have to make
that's
them
a way to
like,
keep it.
Yeah, they have to make them like 90% accurate.
That makes sense. But yeah, that is that's the combat. It's just the combat is like if Octodad had combat at times. Where I'm just like, this feels like there's a lot happening that just feels silly and strange.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very messy part of the game, but it is interesting. It's one of the parts I do like. So
yeah, I feel like they could have like introduced more of those like shield enemies and stuff like earlier to kind of condition you to like use different abilities.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like they don't. Like, they really can't design around what abilities you have because you unlock them at your own pace because of the way letters are used to unlock the abilities. So, like, yeah, it is kind of a tough thing to balance, I think. Do you want to talk about the endings?
Yeah, let's do that.
Because I felt like they felt pretty anticlimactic. Because like showing up to the altars and like it slowly being revealed to you that like, oh, maybe the Cryptmaster's tricking you, getting to the end, and then Auto being the Cryptmaster, them being like two parts of the same person, like all very interesting. I'm like looking forward to the ending. I'm interested in the story. And then like the first ending I got, because I just did them both because it was easy. But like I did the Cryptmaster ending. Like I let him, escape into the world. And then I was like, it just felt like it cuts to black after the cutscene. It's just like, oh, and then the demons broke free, the end. It just felt like very like flaccid. And I was like, oh man, is this like a Life is Strange thing where like one ending is clearly valued way more than the other by the developers based on the ending cutscene? So I went back and did the other one, and it's the same thing. So I was like, oh, I expected there to be like more of a difference, or like one of them to be like the bad ending where like you choose to like smash the zone and something completely unexpected happens. I was expecting like something more, and just felt like it kind of was just like
there's actually a third ending.
No.
If you say no to the final like choice.
Okay.
Where
I never thought to do that.
Yeah, where the living and the dead become, and the ending for that ending is just like, in the end, some people hung out and then of the dead like hung out on the surface, but mostly they liked the other part.
Yeah,
like it is equally like.
And then Rookie Greentail returned to his family.
And then Rookie Greentail returned to his family. So I think this is the one instance, like I kind of honestly forgot about the ending fully of the game.
Yeah.
But I think what's funny to me about it is I think it's like the one place where the tone of the game is just completely ruins any chance of there being a satisfying climax. Like, they chose to make the endings also kind of sarcastic and jokey.
Right.
Where they're like, oh, the dead smell bad and people don't like that. Isn't being smelly funny. Which it is. But there's... But it makes it so that like your choice feels like it's intentionally being like, whatever, your choice didn't really matter that much.
Well, I mean, and if that's an intentional satire of multiple endings, I mean, I could get on board with that, but
yeah,
I don't know what's really trying to say.
Right. It seemed like in the no ending that the thing it was trying to say is like people should put aside their differences and live together in harmony or whatever. But also that isn't really the message that I got from the rest of the game. Not that I got a contradictory message. I don't think Cryptmaster is racist. But I do think
no, that's
that
the
it like
right there. Cryptmaster racist?
Racist? Question mark. But I do think that it's like not interested in having that kind of a message,
right?
And therefore was not interested in having an ending. Really.
Yeah. I expected some kind of a twist, right? Because they're like the Cryptmaster is like when the altar woman, I don't remember her name, like
Shalaya,
like,
I think.
Yeah. It's like, oh, the Cryptmaster is using you. You're like, oh, that makes total sense. Like, oh, I guess like maybe I'm going to betray the Cryptmaster, but then I'm like, oh, well, wait a minute, like, she could be lying too, and like be using me to some other end, and like I just expected that they were like pitting them against each other, and I just expected them to do anything with that. Like, I thought there would be a twist for one of the endings where it was like, oh, it's not what you thought.
Yeah. Like when I got to the end of the game, my assumption was that, there was going to be a subversion of one side or the other. It's either you smash the seal and let the dead out, and there's like some backfire to that, or like your characters die or something.
Yeah, they get sucked into purgatory or something.
Yeah,
You
like
get
some kind of
sealed
thing
in the
like
soul
that.
stone this time.
But it ends up just sort of being exactly what you expect in all cases.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you bring the dead back up, the dead come back up. Nothing bad happens to the Cryptmaster. Your characters get to live on forever.
Yeah,
You
everything is fine and cool.
Yeah, you smash the soul stone, you sacrifice, everything goes back to the status quo. And if you
And
do
you get
neither,
some rad mausoleums built for your characters.
Oh, you do get rad mausoleums. I did forget about that. Which seems like a pretty sweet deal.
It does
all
seem
things
pretty
considered.
cool.
Yeah, I think I think the intent is for the secret ending to be the good ending, but like I said, it's still like it doesn't treat it with the level of gravitas I think that it needs.
And I even like the idea. It feels like a good thematic thing to have like one of the endings hidden behind, say, like in engaging with like the core mechanic of just saying stuff, right? Because like there were times where like you would just type stuff in and they would actually give a response. So like trying that at the end, I like that that's rewarded. But yeah, could have done more with that, I guess.
Yeah. I agree. I think there are a few other things that you could have been able to do I wish that you could have influenced the conversation at all, like between the Cryptmaster and Auto, like saying things in there could have been funny. Could have had a few good laughs out of it, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, roll on snare drum. Everybody laughs.
Roll on snare drum.
Something about fishing? I don't know.
There's fishing. Okay, I'm going to use this one. And I'm going to use this information I'm saying right now as well.
Okay.
Disclaimer, I don't remember if this is actually this character's full title. But do we have Gago the Frog King thoughts?
My Gago the Frog King thoughts are... this game's core concept is super cool. I like a good typing game. I know you do even more than I do. I think they're interesting. Like we've talked about this on past typing games where it's like, it'd be cool if they leaned more away from like the educational roots of typing games and like did something more. And this game totally goes for that. I really like a lot of the core concepts, like the unlocking abilities by defeating enemies by pulling letters out of their names is super cool. I like the 20 questions little mini game, finding out the stuff in the chest. There's some stuff in here that really works for me. Like the Cryptmaster himself, I think is great. Great voice performance, carries the game. Being able to like interact with him by typing stuff, super cool. Like it kind of delivered on something reaching way back for the real fans to the Only If episode, which is an indie game we played forever ago. There were parts of that where you could type in things to the game.
Like Sweet Love?
Yeah, like Sweet Love. Go listen to the episode if you want to get that joke. And I feel like I said something to the effect of like, I wish you could like type in something and actually have that be more interactive and like have it react to what you say. And this game did kind of scratch that itch, like, right? It actually acknowledges the things that you type in. So that was really cool. But like, I think, yeah, like it's doesn't fully lean into being a typing game. It's also trying to be an RPG. And I think that's the big games where a lot of the game's faults stem from. I think it's just not as well of a thought out blending of the two ideas. Like using the letters as like experience points I think is more of a hindrance than it ends up being a cool mechanic. And yeah, I guess I don't want to just like go down a laundry list of the bad things here at the end. Don't want to kick the dog while it's down. But yeah, I just think it could have been a little bit more fleshed out, or a little bit more like they could have stepped back and maybe looked at like what strengthened the whole. You know, I think in the end, like neither side really gets to shine. So yeah, feel kind of torn about it. Like on the one hand, the game is cool and unique, and I had a good time with it. You know, like it's not too long. So it was like a fun little experience, but yeah, like yeah, on the other hand, like a lot about it's just not working. So yeah, feel torn, but I think ultimately leaning positive. Like I think I will remember it fondly. So hard to be too disappointed by it, but definitely misses the mark in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you bring up I want to say some good points. I think you brought up all the good points there. I'm super mixed on it. I think that it is such a good concept, and you can tell like so much care was put into the details of the world. Like, not like lore or anything. I mean, like literally, like how does each area interact with the game's mechanics and the enemies they put there, and like how the game scales and everything. And there's like a lot of thought, and I think that it was just potentially too much, which is not a thing that I want to like deride. I don't want to be like, hey, you overthought your game, keep it simple or whatever. But I do think that it could have benefited from a little bit of simplicity, or just focusing on the existing mechanics before expanding into other things. And it would have made the game a lot more concise. So yeah, I love typing games, as we brought up. Like I think it's great to sort of like use a piece of hardware that most like other ways of playing video games don't have access to. Like using the whole keyboard as a way of entering words as part of the game is like a cool thing that video games don't do super often. And I like to see it when it's done, and I like the way that it's done here. I like that it is focused in that sense, that like everything you do is mostly done through the keyboard and through typing words. And I don't like the fact that they're like finicky, weird mechanics where you have to collect souls and kill bugs to have mana that is like kind of relevant but isn't super relevant. It like only becomes relevant when it's a problem, which isn't a great way to. It doesn't feel like I'm making decisions based around it. It just feels like a thing that I have to sometimes pay attention to. And so, yeah, take it as a whole, it's like a flawed, cool thing. You said that it gave you that the Cryptmaster and all of his lines of dialogue remind you of Realms of the Haunting. This game similarly reminds me of Realms of the Haunting, where it is like it is an idea that rules, that is just is being pulled in too many different directions at the same time. But this, of course, has the benefit of not being made in 1997.
Or the detriment.
Or the detriment, depending on how you want to look at it, because Realms of the Haunting did slap up until that brain maze. So, yeah, I don't know. There were parts of this game that I found really tedious and that I didn't want to do. And there are parts of this game that I thought ruled and that I did want to do and wanted to see more of. So take that as you will. I think if you're the kind of... This game's not expensive. It's not long. Like, if you're just looking for something that's like... If you're the kind of person who just wants to try a novel thing, this 100% fits the bill. And just be aware of the fact that like half of the mechanical problem solving in this game is just riddles.
Yeah. Be ready to just give up and start Googling any riddle you don't know the second half. If you're anything like me.
We didn't talk about this. There's a mechanic in the game where the Cryptmaster can just tell you the answer to a riddle, which I think is like, it's like in the Medium where there's a thing that just let you skip the like quote unquote mini games because they had no purpose other than to be cinematic. I think similarly they should have taken the fact that they had to put in a mode where the Cryptmaster just tells you the answer as a sign that maybe they put too many riddles in the game. But yeah, there it is. Like you said, I don't want to be too harsh. I think the game is very cool and obviously is not made by a whole lot of people.
Yeah, definitely a labor of love.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I'm mad at it because it came so close to greatness.
It stings. That's what I always say.
Yeah,
You can see can see the better thing inside.
But yeah, definitely like I don't know this company, but I will keep an eye out to see if they make anything in the future because this is such a good idea. Thank you for listening to No Clip this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, to close out the spooky Halloween month of October, which it definitely is, we're going to be talking about Amnesia the Bunker. We saved the scariest one for Thanksgiving. Like you do.
There's going to be turkey in the bunker.
There will be turkey in the bunker. There will be beans in the bunker also.
Beans in the bunker, yep. Diarrhea Wednesday incoming.
We're just going to keep making references to other episodes so that you feel like you have to listen to them to get the full experience here.
Yeah. Join the club.
But until that time, you can join our club at noclippodcast.com or on splattershot.pro, where you can find links to our Twitter account, our email address, the Discord server where you can suggest games for us to play, talk about the games that we have been playing, potentially, as of a week ago, maybe get stream announcements. I don't know if we're going to continue streaming.
We're going to try.
Yeah, we're going to give it a shot. That's a new thing. So don't, if you're listening to this a year from now and you're like, they didn't.
You got it.
Know that we knew it was a possibility the whole time. And you can listen to all of our old episodes, including ones that we did on Epistory, was mentioned.
Lunacid.
You can do Lunacid, another dungeon crawler.
Was it Nanotale?
Nanotale.
Chronicle? Yeah.
Sorcery! Exclamation point.
Oh yeah, Super Brother. No, that's Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery is a different.
Sword and
game.
Sorcery.
It's Steve Jackson's Sorcery! Exclamation point.
Exclamation point. Yeah, which is another game that tries to evoke the sort of like adventuring party RPG style, but in the form of a choose your own adventure book.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a unique presentation because it's like you're playing a tabletop game and the game is the DM, but it's like that level of abstraction where like you're actually seeing the game board in the pieces.
Right.
So it is an interesting.
So that's a cool one.
Interesting game.
Yeah, not exactly like this game, I guess, but I think vibe checks out.
Yeah.
Type to like the episode.
Oh god, it would be really funny to be able to like just describe a bell like it's inside of a chest.
Oh yeah, it's
anyway,
a sort of.
There was a bell in the chest. Ring it.
Just go to the comment section of the YouTube version of this episode and just type random fucking words.